Okay, so we're going live and welcome everybody. This is our webinar with ContractPodAi on streamlining your legal operations or improving your legal operations. We'll just wait for everybody to come in. It's really good of you to join us today, and we're very much looking forward to an interactive session, or if you're listening to this on the recording, then thanks very much for making the time to join us. I'm joined here today by Jerry Levine and Tara Bennett. I might just wait, guys, just for a few more people just to come in before we launch into our formal introductions. I like to think for everybody piling into the room with a cup of tea at a conference, but unfortunately we can't really do that at the moment, can we?
Hopefully one day soon.
Yeah.
I am hopefully looking to traveling to London next month, possibly, if as they are starting to relax some of the restrictions.
Yes, of course. Are you going? Yeah. So well, I'm hoping to go to ILTA in Vegas, but I don't know whether we can travel or not. That's it's so complex.
That's the other one I've got coming up. That I think maybe the first in-person conference to come up.
Hey, listen, let's do some introductions, and I'm sure that people would join us. And so welcome. We're going to ease into this. Please, I'll do some housekeeping in a second, but first of all, some introductions. So I've got Jerry Levine, who is Chief Evangelist and General Counsel at ContractPodAi. Jerry is responsible for legal affairs and spreading word about the platform. And Jerry previously was General Counsel at IPsoft, where you actually put ContractPodAi in, didn't you?
I did. And you can, I think it's a good sign when you leave where you're working to go work for something, I love the product that much.
I think it is a good sign. Tara Bennett. So Tara is Director of Solutions Engineering in EMEA at ContractPodAi. You joined as Solutions Engineer, but very quickly has moved into the Director role, working both with in-house and law firms. So it was this year, wasn't it? You joined in.
It was, yeah, absolutely. In February, yeah, absolutely. And I'm delighted to be here. Yeah,
baptism of fire, as it always is. So in terms of housekeeping, we don't get to do much in the way of conferences and demos. So this is going to be very sort of product focused, which is what we're listening to the market. People are saying, we don't have the opportunity to get together and have demos that much. So we're going to have a really great opportunity. Tara and Jerry are going to give us a full demo of the platform, focusing particularly on the cloud, the new cloud platform, which we'll come on to do a bit of a deep dive into. And it's supposed to be interactive. We welcome your questions. We're going to have three, after we've had a bit of a chat, we're going to have three demos with three different use cases to walk you through the platform. In between each of those, we'll invite questions. But in fact, actually, at any point, just ask questions, because the idea is that the whole reason for doing this is so that you can interact, you can ask Jerry, you can ask Tara, and so we encourage your questions. I'm sure everybody is familiar with Zoom, but obviously, if you go into the chat section, Jerry's already said hi. Put your questions to all or just to the panelists, depending on what's appropriate for you. Feel free just to direct it to the panelists if you're not confident enough to say hello to everybody. We will be doing a couple of polls which should appear in the chat. We'll do that one at the beginning and one at the end. So let's have some fun as well. It's summer. We're surviving COVID lockdown. So let's have some fun. Say who you are if you want to stay in the chat. It'd be nice to stay. If you say who you Jeremy Hills from Legal IT Insider. He's in the chat section saying hello, and we'll help to direct if I forget to look in the chat, or if one of us forgets, then he'll make sure that we answer your questions. So do say hi, do say where you're listening in from. So ContractPodAi, what did you say?
No, I am her husband and general helper.
Okay, and I didn't mention he's also my husband. He's our commercial director. Right, so ContractPodAi. So we're going to focus on the cloud, but so the new platform. So I'm right in saying, Anna, it launched in 2012, and that makes me feel really old because it feels like just a couple of years ago. But when I actually looked up the date, it's 2012 that the sort of the the original CLM platform launched.
That's true. Actually, the way I handle this is I have been 27 for the past 13 years. This past December, I celebrated the 13th anniversary of my 27th birthday. But we have been around. It has almost been a decade. And it's been about, we started out as pure repository and contract management. And by the way, we do have a poll open right now.
I know, right? Like there's nothing like spontaneity, right? So we said
so if you do have a CLM, and I'll go back to the answer there, we'd love to know if you have one or what you're using in your current contract management system. That'll be up for a couple of moments while we talk. But Caroline, you're right. We have been around for almost a decade now. We're really excited about, I would say the AI functionality really started to take hold probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're really excited about our new ContractPodAi Cloud function. And I do want to point out for those of you who have certain data privacy requirements and everything, we call it cloud, but we do have an on-prem solution as well.
Yeah.
So we think everything's best in the cloud, but if you have the requirements for on-prem or your private cloud, we can do that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So RSV. So Jeremy's saying, please, can you RSVP openly and honestly to the poll? So if you could just, we'll leave that up for a little bit while we talk. Yeah. So of course. So you launched the ContractPodAi Cloud in April, and obviously you've still got the core CLM function, but that forms now it's a module of the bigger platform, right? And then we're going to come on. I'm going to ask you about this. So, but just to summarize, you've created end-to-end workflow functionality, and you say you can handle any document process scenario from contracts to claims to IP management. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a very fair assessment. I've been pointing out that we can practically do anything that a customer needs. We have built some pre-built functionality, and we'll point that out when we show off the product a little bit to you, Caroline. Yeah. But we are looking at it as if it is something that is a document or even a legal process that an in-house team or in some functions external counsel need to access. We are really excited about how customizable and flexible it can be while remaining easy to use and having a great experience for the user.
I think let's read this. So is this reflective of either Tara or Jerry? So your experience, so a vast majority, 80% say that you don't have a current CLM in place. Is that typical of your experience?
I think it's positively, yes. Sadly, yes. I think those two go hand in hand. I do feel that, and I apologize, I know Tara probably experiences this more as well, hearing for the first time, but I do find that a lot of companies and law firms too. We've actually been approached by several law firms asking them to automate their internal contracting.
Right.
But the vast majority of companies still don't have an active CLM function, or even I was speaking yesterday with a group of about 30 to 40 GCs, and again, big companies, billion-dollar companies that have everything's being managed in a shared folder, and it's a shame.
It's actually quite terrifying, to be perfectly frank with you. Whatever CLM system, it's terrifying from a privacy perspective. From also, when we've engaged a lot with GCs who say they lose sleep over this stuff. So, okay, so I think perhaps we can end the poll, and we'll do another one at the end. So, thank you so much for taking part in that. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to clear it. And so just go through. Yeah. So we've already discussed. So we're here really to do a deep dive into the cloud, but which is is a big extension. So you're very much known for CLM already. So how is the cloud platform different? If someone said, "Oh, is it really different?" How is it different to what you had before?
So I think the first thing anyone who uses this platform is going to notice, it looks different. We have gone back to the drawing board on the user interface, on the user experience. I like to think of what I onboarded years ago at my prior company as being ContractPod 1. You know, this is effectively the difference now between the way it looks is the difference between looking at, and now you're going to see why I call myself 27 with 13 years of experience. If you remember Windows Me at the turn of the 21st century, the difference between Windows 20 years ago and today is astounding. And Microsoft, a friend of ours, just announced Windows 11 will be out soon. So we're expecting even more changes.
About that. Yes, yes.
But the first thing you're going to experience is the user interface is much simpler, much easier to use. But beyond that, underlying a lot of the code of the system has been rewritten, streamlined to make it a lot easier to use and a lot more efficient and functional. So, you know, I can tell you, having been a user of all 3 versions of ContractPod, going back to pretty much 2017. I won't say, because I joined recently, Caroline.
Yeah.
I will say that the speed of the system is greatly improved. The usability of the system is greatly improved. But even underlying, our AI is much more powerful. Tara just told me a few minutes ago, I've been saying several hundred key obligations. We now support, out of the box, we can recognize what we call key obligations, legal clauses. We can analyze and recognize, is it 2,000?
2,000 out of the box. Yeah, absolutely.
So without any training, without any education of the system, we've just massive improvements across the board.
Yeah. And sorry, Tara, were you going to say something?
I was just going to touch on, you were asking about, you know, what's different. And I think Jerry's done a great job of explaining that, but equally the foundational elements of that in terms of the AI, the searching and the reporting ability and those foundational pieces, they all still remain.
Yeah.
But what we've done with One Legal Platform is that we apply them in a more specific way. So for example, with general matters, it goes beyond contracts. You know, what is it that in-house legal teams need to deal with, and how do they route those, and how do they get these matters to the subject matter experts, and the ability to direct those in an automated fashion.
Yeah.
That is what is different with cloud, along with some enhanced functionality around some other areas, which hopefully we'll take a little sneak peek at those later on.
Yes, because you created lots of different modules, haven't you? So you can handle RFPs, you can handle IP, you can handle claims, for example, and those all come as they're new modules within the bigger platform, aren't they?
Absolutely, and some additional functionality as well. So as in addition to actions and reminders, we now have task management capabilities, which can be used to track obligations post-signature, but also any deliverables or key obligations. So there's a much broader piece and a lot more sophistication in terms of how we can support actually not just the legal teams, but the broader businesses. How can the other departments, HR, procurement, sales, how can we improve their user experience and just make it really easy and friendly and as guided a journey for them as possible?
Yeah, because
I was going to say Tara's point's very accurate, and it's important to note we recognize how difficult it is to get non-legal users to use legal tools.
Yeah.
So one key area where we have focused is how do we make these tools easier for others to get into if they need them, but also in the case of, say, and I know this from firsthand experience, my sales team never wanted to be in ContractPod. They wanted to be in Salesforce 24/7. So we've made sure that the integrations work better, that you don't have to feel like, oh, I have to leave what I'm comfortable with. But you could. It's easy, and I hate to say it like this, it is easy enough that a salesperson can use it. But
if you're a salesperson listening in, we love you. No, because there's such a breakdown, isn't there, between the different departments? It causes such inefficiency at the end of the day.
We want to work with our teams. I don't think of it as being, I hate the idea when in-house lawyers and say, oh, my business clients, because
Mm,
they're not. You should be one team, and
yeah.
recognizing that one team atmosphere is, if everybody wants to use ContractPod, that's great. In fact, Tara was just telling me that she had a call recently where the sales team was saying, oh, well, we could replace, one, they said they could replace a leading RFP management tool with
Yeah.
our tool.
Yeah.
And the sales team was saying we could actually use this to manage sales relationships by configuring a sales relationship management tool.
But you know
So
what? Sorry.
Go ahead,
No,
Caroline.
sorry. I'm getting overexcited. Finish a sentence. I'm sorry to interrupt.
So we're finding even beyond where we were excited. Sorry, Jeremy just put something funny. No, Jeremy, and to point this out for Jeremy, I have been 27 for 13 years. So so I was 6 for the 13 years before that or so, 21 years before that. But no, we're actually really excited with how much impact the customers are having on the tool, to find out that they're already looking and saying, well, we can expand this past even some ideas that you're having, we can really expand this out. So it's really exciting, because from my true experience, I did have trouble getting my sales team to use it. They wanted to be in Salesforce 24/7. So we had a Salesforce integration. Now, when I show my former colleagues ContractPodAi Cloud, they're sitting there going, well, this is easier to use than what I'm used to. I would rather use this sometimes. So this is all a real positive for us, and we're very excited about it.
And I was the thing I nearly interrupted you saying. I'm going to come on to talk to you about the various use cases. I'm interested to see where you think this could go in terms of, now that you've got this expanded platform, what areas you think it could move into. But I think probably it's a good time for you to hand over. We're going to do, as I mentioned, just reiterate housekeeping. If you joined us, thank you so much. If you weren't on at the beginning when I said hello, this is your time. If you've got questions, please put them in the chat. I'm sure everyone knows where the chat is. And just ask any questions you want. This is an opportunity. We don't get many conferences, we don't get together. So if you do have questions, either direct them to the panelists or to everyone, and as you feel, say where you are and say what your question is, and we'll make sure that everyone gets answered. But so you're going to do, if you want, guys, you want to launch into your first demo, and I'll go on mute unless you need me.
Absolutely.
Sure. So Tara, let's kick off the demo, and
I'll go ahead and share my screen. Is this coming through clearly?
Yes.
Okay.
I will give it a moment to load, everyone. What you're looking at right now is the new homepage, the new dashboard for ContractPodAi. As Caroline mentioned, we do support a lot of more applications now, as well as the ability to build your own application. Now, we're going to give you 3 basic use cases, but I do want to show you something very cool that we have before we get into repository and legal requests. One thing that I know as a GC and a technology GC without a computer science background is how hard it's been in the past to do a lot of tasks within this, how much you need to rely on your implementation team, and possibly even hire significant staff to help you develop the software. So Tara, can you jump into the Vault real fast? And for those of you who are watching, the Vault is what we call our control panel, our back end. So we have gone out of the way to make things easy to use. So Tara, I'm going to point at the workflow designer first. And we have really looked to make this as easy and as simple to use as possible. So if you open one of these workflows, you will see it's no longer if then else statements. It is now drag and drop. We could spend the entire time talking about this, but even one of the rules I've set for our development team and our product team has been to turn things like this over to me without training, so that I know if I can figure it out, then I can teach, and our training team can teach how to do it. If this was too complex for me to figure out in less than 10 minutes, and if this was that complex to figure out, we could not, I'm not going to be happy with letting it go to a customer. So this can be built out. You can have as many of these as you want, as few of them as you want. And what's really cool is there's a lot more flexibility. So if you have to go through, 7 layers of approval, and we have customers that have that, and you wanted to circle back or round robin, all of that is possible. Jeremy Hill asks, have we mapped and designed 100 plus of these workflows? We actually rely on our customers to find out what they need. So we don't come in and tell you, you have to mold your work case to our scenario. What we do is we look and we work with you to establish best practices. Now, where we do find an error, or I wouldn't say an error, but when we do find a place where we think you can improve, we'll say, that doesn't make a lot of sense. How about if we set it up like this? But ultimately, we want to work to match your workflows to your company. If you told us you wanted something pretty standard, we do have some standard workflows we could roll out for anybody. Approval. The director of sales must approve any discount before it goes forward. We could do that. We could say GC must approve any increase in liability past $1 million or £1 million or €1 million. Those are all fairly simple, but we have customers we have one customer who's having us put in place and repair. They have 667 workflows in their current system. And we are now hopefully going to get that to less than 30 actual built out workflows, because a lot of them are duplicative. So Tara, if you want to jump back to that screen, close out of this, and if we can go back into the vault, I only want to spend a moment or two more on this, but as Tara mentioned, we do have the new task manager. You can set up rules for tasks, you can set up the way they go and how the system extracts information and automatically sets up reminders or obligation management. So if you're looking at this, we're tracking an important date. If that happens, different rules are triggered, different obligations are reviewed, and notifications come to you. The other real cool and real easy to use functionality, and I can promise you this is easy to use because I automated a document in 5 minutes yesterday. Tara, if you can jump right into if you can jump over back into the vault and just go to the document types. I'm assuming that they're still in the vault. I think it's a little down. So if we can, I think we are looking at activity. Is it activity type or? Well, Tara, you know where these things are. Don't listen to me. This is bad.
I'm interested in what is it that you want to take a look at?
Where is the template designer?
Oh, that's in application types.
Okay.
So in terms of the templates, we're going to have a look in a moment at the NDA. But essentially, yeah. So we can have a contract type. This is the input fields, and then we have an automated contract desk where you can define all of the rules. Unfortunately, the one I've clicked on doesn't actually have a document associated to it, but this is essentially where you can define. Yes.
Sorry, can you click on add document type?
Yes.
And if you scroll down, let's skip everything and let's just go to the ACD. For those of you who have to think about this, if we go to intake form fields, these are all of these things that you saw on that prior page. And I apologize for cutting you off, Tara. That was my fault. I should have let you finish.
Not a problem.
You will see that all of these are effectively just fields you paste into Word. If Tara were to click those little squares on the right side, she can paste that into a Word document, upload the file, and then when the next time you go to create a document, which we will do in a second, it will show up and it will automatically populate that. With that, I think that is the point we should go to a legal request. And so while Tara is going to that, Caroline, do you have any questions about that? You are muted, Caroline.
That's the statement of 2021. I was just going to ask, talking about the client, it's more of a general question, actually. The types of client you mentioned, some, is there a typical client that you find uses you, or do you have a real mixture? Are there, I suppose one of my questions was, are there clients where perhaps ContractPodAi wouldn't be appropriate, or
so that's a really good question. I think in earlier versions, there was a real strict focus on legal departments. But we handle buy side and sell side. We can integrate with systems ranging from Ariba and Workday to Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics CRM. I don't really see us as having a specific client we don't support. Now, if you don't see, the only place I would say is if you don't see any contracts, or you see one contract a year, I don't know if this is, but I can't even imagine that you're operating you're really in the need for any sort of CLM if you're seeing one contract a year. But we have customers that have a one-person legal department. We have customers that have hundreds of people in the legal department. We work with law firms to provide what I like to call managed contract management, or contract management as a service. We really do have quite a variety of these. Excuse me for one moment while I mute the rest of my household.
I can pick up a little bit on that as well, Caroline. I think in terms of industry, we deem ourselves, I suppose, to be industry agnostic, because there's not no particular industry makes up more than 10% of our client base. And in terms of how the clients use it, as Jerry was saying, so buy side, sell side, sometimes both. Clients will use it for self-serve. Some just use it as a repository plus to be able to store everything in the repository, and then have the ability to search across not just the metadata but the contents of those documents as well, to make more informed management decisions. So that's I can't see what's happening because I closed the box.
Oh, there I go again. I'm a great interrupter, just interrupt everybody. And in terms of the self-serve, I think what's really interesting, and the zero code empowering the people who really understand what's going on. I think one of the really interesting conversations I'm having is about, so there's a real fear over shadow IT, and I wondered if do you have those conversations? Does that come up? Do you or is that not really a fear? Is that something that you're addressing with people? Because I think that's something that people bring up with us, and I guess there are definitely ways around it in terms of the processes and perhaps involving IT and all of those kind of things to make sure that people feel that you've got this sort of provisioning around it, I guess.
I think there's a general nervousness might be the wrong word, but I think you were talking earlier on about the fact that how many 80% was it that you said of people, businesses do not have a CLM, and I think that it's that general digitization and transformation process is a little bit further behind some of the other sectors, and I think there is a nervousness surrounding that. And it's not so much about we do get a lot of security questions. We do have very detailed conversations with different IT departments, and quite often the initiatives can be led by various different, it could be led by procurement or sales. It's not always legal. So I wouldn't say there's one sort of stereotype, so to speak, but there is just a general automating something that I think it's trust, isn't it? It's deciding what use cases do we want to address. We don't necessarily want to address it all at once, because whilst we can roll out this solution that can cater for being one legal platform, contracts, matters, IP portfolio management, businesses then need to adopt that internally, and they need to roll that out in a managed way. And of course, we support that. So things like our Outlook plugin and things like the Word plugin and that user journey. But I think as time goes on, I think that as the sector in general sort of gets a bit more of a buy-in, there'll be more trust, I think, in allowing tools to automate that process in order for them to gain some of the efficiencies that they can.
It's a really
One thing I would add is we obviously want people to work with their IT teams. You know, what we're automating is within the tool. But if you have, we support SSO, we support integrations, and of course, you're going to need to still work with your internal IT professionals. You know, yes, could a legal department or a law firm or a user implement this completely separate from everything else? Absolutely. Is it still very powerful? Yes. But, you know, most companies, most organizations do have rules about what they can do, what they cannot do, how they connect. So as far as that goes, I don't think it's so much of a shadow IT concern. What I do think is that we do also see a growth in legal operations and the general, what I like to call lawyers and allied professionals, the people surrounding the law departments and the lawyers to make them work better and more efficiently. And that's one of our goals, is to encourage growth in that as well. With that, I do want to, yeah, Caroline, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, we've definitely got, can we just say hello to Gordon Vella Webb, who's just said that he's from listening in from Lex Mundi, who we know, it's a global network of independent leading law firms. So welcome, Gordon. If you've got any questions, Jerry and Tara, please do put them in the chat section. I'm sorry, Jerry, what were you going to say? You're going to go to the second demo?
No, I was gonna start going through it. So we're going to walk real quickly. What you're looking at right now, and thank you, Caroline. What you're looking at right now is the contract management main screen. If the other part is your dashboard for the platform, this is your dashboard in which you would be living. It tells you quite a bit about what's going on in your company, contract-wise, what's active, what's in request, how many different documents are available. For example, in this demo, we have 830 NDAs that are currently in the system. It also tells you where your suppliers and your customers are located based on what's coming through the system. We're going to go very quickly through the request process, which we hope is pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to create an NDA today, but this can happen with any sort of document. We are going to go through authoring a new contract, the first party paper. So what Tara is doing is Tara is going to prepare documents on our paper. Now, as you can see, the fields do fill out automatically. The information's already in the system. So it has come in and it has done that. As you fill out the intake form, it begins preparing the fields for automatic generation of your first party paper. And honestly, you can really use this to do anything. We are actually internally, we're using this to begin preparing our release notes. We're going to generate our release notes through ContractPodAi. But you can prepare any document that has a standard format through the system. A lot of what you're seeing now was configured through that document, through that automated contract desk that you saw earlier. You're also seeing what would be our view for a lawyer. Now, I myself, in my view, set up more rules than you see for people with different permissions and different users. So in this case, the legal user is creating an NDA. If this was a sales user or someone who has a lot more automation in their application, all this could be done automatically. When one of our salespeople at ContractPod creates an NDA, they actually don't have to fill out anything about this other than I ask them what the date is they want the NDA to be effective. So once Tara clicks generate version, we're going to prepare a NDA. And some of you may know that I'm interested in the One NDA project and simplifying NDAs. This is a demonstration of the software. Did we have a disconnection, Tara?
I believe we did, yes. It's probably because I logged in and I've just been sitting here with it kind of waiting.
Okay, well, let's reload the page.
It's the live demo. Do you know what? Don't rush. Like, if you want to sit here for a minute.
Well, I tell you what we'll do. Why don't we go into the repository and why don't we have a look at an NDA that we've previously created?
So I promise you it does work. Unfortunately, Tara, I think you need to log out and log back in. We sat there for too long while we were talking.
I'm going to unshare my screen for a moment.
So, I am not thrilled to have that happen, but what you did see is the request field come out. Now, what would normally happen, and Tara is reloading and relogging in, we do have security set up on our demo accounts so that you can't just log in. You do have to remain active in various tools to keep them running. So we don't let you sit there for, I think on our demo account, the timeout may be as little as 10 minutes to make sure that no one uses it as a consistent ongoing account. So Caroline, while Tara is resetting everything on her end, what other questions can I answer? I know we've got a few minutes pause here. And again, I apologize for our security excitement.
Jerry, this is the amount of times.
Here we go.
There we go. This is it.
Oh. I'm going to shut up now then.
So here you go. Now, what we did is that as Tara has now gone through the security requirements again and logged back in, you could see that the contract has been generated itself. If you look where it says ABC Inc., all of that information was taken through the document generation tool. It's prepared. It's actually already tagged for signature. If I were to send this to someone, whether it's Jeremy Hill or Caroline, it would come through the signature platform on very straightforward, very, very quickly. So in fact, this actually went to one of our directors already for review. And if Tara was to go and edit the questionnaire, it would create a new document. We can share it, we can compare, but all of that is done. What Tara, I think the next thing we should show is the repository and the cognitive search. And Caroline, while she gets over there, do you have a question before we continue?
I nearly did it again. Yeah, no, I have. I mean, I think I have tons of questions actually. But I think one of them, I'm not sure whether it's just a quick question. I'm not sure whether, Tara, how long will you be? Because I've got questions about what I touched on it before. I'm really curious as to that you now have so many different use cases. We can cover this afterwards if it's too in depth for now, but I really would love to know, where you see the platform developing in terms of it starting to encroach on all, you can automate contracts. So you're starting to, if you forgive the term, step on a lot of toes actually with this. And I'm curious as to what use cases you see, either both now and in the immediate future.
We are really looking, and we call it a one legal platform. I call it a legal operating system because we're beginning to see it as the centerpiece of a law department's practice area. Now, there are certain areas we are not going into. Right now, we are not interested in getting into billing management. We're not going to get into e-discovery, but we are open to working with other providers to basically be part of our operating system. We're discussing with information security and data privacy companies on how to better integrate their platforms into our platform and vice versa. So we do want to step on some toes, but we don't want to step on all the toes.
So I saw you've got a couple of e-discovery partnerships already, haven't you? So so Gordon said that he's had a meeting. He's obviously started a conversation with you guys. So that's, yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't benefit you to be all things to everyone. I saw that. Yeah, I was curious about your ambitions in terms of e-discovery and potentially because you're moving into sort of litigation and to a certain extent in terms of litigation analytics, right? And I guess that was one of my areas of curiosity as to where that might go.
Yeah, I mean, I won't rule anything out, but at the same time, we really do want to be a good partner in the marketplace. I wouldn't see us partnering up with other CLM providers because this is our core function.
Yeah. But
we do see ourselves as being a platform that's the center of a department. So if a billing provider wants us to come and build a billing module that will integrate their platform with ContractPodAi, I am all for having that discussion. I mentioned law firms. We are discussing with law firms the potential for managed contract management, where essentially you may have 10 clients who don't need contract management on their own, but you could add it as an added service. E-discovery, again, we are happy to talk with e-discovery providers and create an e-discovery module so that our users feel like they have one central place where they can start their day and continually work out of.
Yeah, I'm going to come on to ask you actually separately about law firms, because I know you're doing a lot in that space. And I think when we were promoting this webinar, we were talking about it's not just of interest to corporates, but to law firms. And I know of two you've got a reseller agreement with. So I think we'll come on to that separately, if that's okay. Tara, are you good to go on to the demo?
Yeah, we're good, yep.
So going back to that, what you're looking at now is our central repository. For for a long time, this is the heart and soul of ContractPodAi. Any one of these will essentially show you what you just saw, Tara, in a moment ago. These are the document has been created, the contract is in process. You know what stage it's in, you know how it was created, and what type of document it is, who your partners are. If Tara was to go into one of these, you've got, I don't know, is Abbey Road Studios, our third one there, Tara. If we were to open that, and she will, you'll see the information that comes up first. So you can see the snapshot of everything that's in the contract. You can see that there have been tasks assigned to different approvers, key data, what I sometimes refer to as metadata, and tells you whether or not the contract is. I wish Jeremy could stop because I keep laughing every time he says something. So you see the, I'm gonna have to minimize the chat just in case. So you can see all this information has been pulled out automatically by the AI. And one thing that I'm really key on pointing out is the AI is not a dumb AI. We don't want dumb AI that just looks at two words. It doesn't just say, oh, this says client instead of customer, so this can't be what I'm looking for. It is actually a cognitive agent. So we are actually looking at the context of the sentence. If you labeled your force majeure clause as liability, it would still find that clause. It is not just thinking about it. The computer, the software behind this is not just thinking about what the word is that starts the sentence or the heading. It's actively looking at the sentence, the clause in the document itself, and how it's structured. So Tara, if you scroll down, I think we should see some red non-compliance. So this document that we open is missing a force majeure clause. It's missing some of the intellectual property clauses. And that really allows us to, now if we go back up, to look at the risk scoring and all of that. I do want to jump to the risk scoring in a little bit, because I think the cognitive search and the digital transformation measurement is really important to the viewers today. So Tara, can we jump over to cognitive search for a moment? So our cognitive search is much more powerful. We are not just word searching anymore. We are actually looking deep in the document to figure out what you may be looking for. So as you can see, we do support, for those of you who are familiar with LexisNexis or Westlaw, we do support a lot of those intelligent search terms, brackets, quotation marks, nearby search. The system will suggest terms it's found in the contract, and it will suggest misspellings as well. In the event that when you typed it in, you typed force majeure instead of force majeure, it will attempt to tell you, hey, we found this a few times incorrectly in a document. We could search within the metadata only or in the document itself. We could search based on proximity. So Caroline, if I was searching for Caroline Hill in a document, but I knew that they're going to be separated by at least one word, I can actually create a proximity search to search for those words. So what we found is that this has made it a lot easier to find something, because sometimes you don't just put, you may not just have limitation of liability. Some people have tried to simplify it and say liability limit or limit of liability. We can search not just for the correct word, not just for the phrase you're looking for, but words that are very similar in that conjunction, in conjunction. I would now like to get over to Tara. Can we get into I guess is it in Deep Sites that we have the digital transformation tracker, or is that just?
It is in yeah, Deep Sites, that's correct.
Great. For those folks who are they're trying to show their business outcomes, their digital transformation journey, we've actually built a whole scorecard and tracker that will tell you more about what your company or your organization is doing, and allows you to track it in real time as you improve. So here, what you're seeing here is the business outcome tracker. This is showing you what's come in legacy versus your modern system, what you've authored in the system, and what has been your third-party paper. If we click on digital transformation journey, you will see that we can actually show you where you're in terms of approaching your successful digital transformation journey. So for here, you're looking at a company that has really gone pretty far. They're not all the way there, but we can tell you, this is your request data that you're pulling in, how much your self-service desk is being used. Is your automation running properly, and are you having to do more manual review or automated review? Are your contracts easily searchable or not? Are you using the collaboration tools? We didn't show it earlier, but I'm really fond of a collaboration tool. The more I start working on my iPad, I like to collaborate with myself. I don't know what that means, that I like to collaborate with myself, but we do have a very powerful Word compatible. We do have Word plugins. We also have a Word compatible online editing tool.
Presumably, Jerry, this makes it so it's in-house teams. Obviously, they struggle still with being a cost center. This has been something that we've talked about for 1,000 years. It hasn't changed. And in terms of they still struggle to get budget, and they still struggle. They've actually sometimes, with respect to anybody who's on from an in-house team, they've sort of approached it perhaps not in the most business-like way, because sometimes they haven't got the tools, right? Because they don't go, right, we do this for this amount and this. Presumably this is something that they can use in terms of being able to communicate in a perhaps more KPI, business-like way. That would be what I would imagine.
And that's exactly what it is. Of course, I always say, I love the product. I'm always happy to talk about legal technology, but we're very big on driving digital transformation and helping our customers and potential customers design what they need to show off to prove how to earn their business case and how to make sure their budget can be met. So we will work with you to help show this off. And this is key because it's hard to prove for it's been hard to prove unless you can show a concrete example of a savings, which, yes, I like to talk about how I found $500,000 or $600,000 in wasted money at my prior company, because we were giving away free services on an expired contract through ContractPodAi. I learned that. But if you are just looking to be able to say, you know what, here's where we are, here's where we've been, we can show these turnaround times, we can show the savings, we can show how much faster we've gone. All of this is a positive thing that really helps in-house legal departments prove what they're going on. And consequently, for an external lawyer, you can really show how much better your client is performing by working with you to generate their contracts and work within a system. So, I think it's really exciting.
Sorry, Gordon's pointed out that Raja and Tan, in Singapore is using ContractPodAi. So Raja and Tan is one of your resellers, aren't they? As is Pinsent Mason. So they're
Yes.
law firms that are effectively reselling it to their own clients.
Right. So for law firms, we work with a few different models. We do have resell, we have referral models. One thing we are busy looking at and working with them on, like Raja and Tan, is the idea of this, like I said, managed contract management. I'm really excited about that idea because I know that there are a lot of companies out there that would love to have a powerful CLM solution, powerful other solutions, but based on their size or based on what they're doing, they can't justify buying it for themselves. So for law firms, we're looking at resale, we're looking at managed services, we're looking at ways to make law firms more valuable for their clients. You know, one way that I imagine it is, imagine if I'm a law firm and I can say, look, we will give you some contract management, you can generate some of your documents, and if you need help, click the help button. It'll trigger a lawyer. Here's your rate. Here's everything that's going on. We will help you. We are 100% open to working with law firms to really deliver incredible client experiences for their clients. And of course, we are dedicated at ContractPodAi to delivering incredible experiences for our customers.
I'm conscious of, I want to make sure that you've got full time to finish your demo. So do you want to focus just so, because we probably won't go beyond an hour, but so I just want to make sure that do you want to go on to the third part
Absolutely.
of the demo? Yeah, I just want to make sure you've got ample time to show your stuff.
Sure. So the third half of this, oh my goodness, you can see I've been locked up too long. So we do have what we call contract risk and compliance. And I like to think of it as a backup attorney or an assistant, in really determining what should be in a document. So as you can see, the document is coming in from a third party. Tara is filling it out. We are contracting with someone, and you know, Tara just skipped contract. Does contract value matter? I skipped that myself half the time, but it is useful if you're trying to see what things are worth. Usually I get that pushed in from Salesforce. So what Tara is going to do is she's going to upload a license agreement, and the AI is going to run on it. Now, like I said, we are very intelligent AI. This is not just, are we matching a term? We are scanning the document. It is making connections. It is running OCR if this was a PDF or an image. It is going through and pulling it out. So we are clear. This will work, and Caroline, this will work on documents from 1 page to thousands of pages. The more pages, of course, the longer the document. It will take longer, but it will not just stop and die. But we're really excited about what we call contract risk and compliance. So Tara, let's click on review risk scorecard. And since the AI ran, you should see that the AI has, based on a playbook that we've built, has determined that this contract is pretty risky for the company. Now, Caroline, this is probably a question you want to ask. So running on that, the AI is pretty deep. The playbook has been built by either the customer or a law firm or a partner. I always like to point out, we are not a law firm, so we can't tell you what's good law, what's bad law, what you should do. We can, however, work with our law firm partners, work with ALSPs, alternative legal service providers, to develop a playbook for you and implement it, including all the fallbacks. Now, Gordon did ask, how many clause types can you cover? Tara told me earlier today that we've actually expanded once again. By default, we have 2,000 plus clauses we can now recognize without any additional training. We can, of course, train the system to understand anything. If you have something very specific to your organization that you need to make sure is in there, we can teach the AI to recognize it. And beyond the English, we didn't show it off today yet, but we do have the ability to translate into up to 70 languages using cognitive translation. It is really good.
That was really weird, Jerry. You just literally read my mind. I was just thinking about multi-language as you said it.
I do this all the time. I have to go get tested for ESP. And so we can support multiple languages. I caution people, just as with anything, you don't want to submit a machine translation to a court yet, but you can rely on it as your general, making sure the contract's correct, extracting data from it. But of course, it is really, really good. I have run documents in German to English, and they are fully readable, and they do match their original language. Even Japanese, I believe, works, Chinese works, Korean, and we can search through them, we can analyze them. It is a feature that we do offer. So far, it is pretty powerful. I don't know, Tara, does the translation show up on this?
We can translate a document. Let's start it running while we go through the other pieces, because it can take a little while. But something else just to add on to the end of what Jerry was just talking about, Caroline, in terms of the translation capability. When we were in cognitive search earlier on, I was searching in English because that is my native language, but you can actually, cognitive search can search across languages, and then it will display the results to you in your native language. And it would only be when you were to download that document, or you were to have a look at the original language that it was in, that you might find out it was, Japanese, Spanish, French. Again, it's part of that user journey and accessibility of the data and the contents of the repository. That's my favorite feature.
I will note, my French is terrible and I am not allowed to speak French, but this document, once Tara opens, was the English document she uploaded a moment ago. And let's just recover. And you could see that this license agreement is now in French. And Tara, can you open the original one that we put up a second ago?
Yeah, sorry, clicking in the wrong place. There you go.
So
shall I try?
You are seeing.
I've got my Zoom bar is in the way. I'm trying to sort of snap them either side. There you go.
But you're looking at two documents and including the errors we made in the document. So it is pulling it through, translating it, and telling you this is a pretty good translation. I only have high school French. At this point, I can order food in French and say ooh la la to my wife, but that is pretty much it. But the translation is extremely powerful, extremely good. We do have up to 70 languages. We have to turn them on as customers request them. But we do, I believe, at the core is 12 languages, and then additional languages are available. Going back to the control panel, we were talking about the risk scorecard. Tara, can you click review contract terms? So a few moments ago, I was talking about the playbook. And what we've done here is you can see here's your playbook actually coming into the screen. So here the AI has analyzed this and determined that this does not match our standard playbook for assignments. So it gives me the choice to insert compliant text, remove text, or accept the risk. So as I go through this, and you can see the second one Tara shown, part of this clause was valid, but part of this was not. So earlier, for some reason, the proceedings were in Russia. We can't accept Russian law. We don't want to go to Russian court. So we get that. Once Tara actions on this and you start seeing, and she clicks to review and accept changes or accept changes, it will actually update that risk scorecard and tell you how much closer you are to your document. Again, I apologize because for those of you, I think many of you are in Europe, it is still the middle of the school day here in the US, and I have an active household.
It's just life now, don't worry.
I know.
Yes, I don't want to interrupt too much because I'm conscious again of time and wanting you to finish the demo. I don't know how much, but so presumably just very quickly, with the workflow tools that you're building out, could people use this to effectively triage contracts? So because obviously legal departments don't have the capacity. Anyone who thinks they see all contracts is naive. I remember speaking to GCs going, what you just, so presumably this will allow them to filter them and go, right, this just goes, I don't even look at this. Is that eventually, if not now?
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the key use cases for the workflow and our triage functionality is and one idea is if a contract's worth less than, let's say, $1,000, you know, maybe you just don't care. Maybe you just say, assuming the risk profile meets at least 60%, you could just put it through.
Yeah.
But we could have this so that you could have it so that documents that are a value of £10,000 or less go to one lawyer, go to one person or paralegal. Documents over $1 million must be vetted by this senior attorney.
Yeah.
All of that can be done. And of course, that could go to the CFO, that could go to your finance team, billing, you know, service design, solutions engineering. Everyone can get a different portion and can work on it simultaneously or in a flow to make sure that they're not, so that you know what you're working on. And all of that can be triggered in collaboration or by download or by the Word plugin. We also do support Gmail, Outlook. The Gmail plugin and the Outlook plugin are something I wanted very badly because I wanted to be able to click a button and have an email and a contract just put into a tracker. You know, for those of you at outside law firms, you probably remember the days, you probably deal with this, where you have to click assign the case and bill 0.1 hours. That I like the assigned to case. I don't like billing the 0.1 hours. But so we really focused on building out that functionality so that you don't have to interrupt your workflow to make your workflow work.
Yeah.
That was a lot of the word work in a line.
The word work is such an important thing from a risk and compliance perspective. Did you want to, have I interrupted, did you want to, have you finished the demo, or is there?
We can stop here. What you're looking, I can say
well, no,
what
I mean,
you're looking at.
There are points I want to make sure, because this is obviously, you know, I'm keen to make sure that you've shown all of the functionality that we covered.
Oh, we didn't show all of the functionality.
No, maybe
Tara,
not.
Tara, do you want to quickly jump?
That we haven't covered, Tara, that you wanted to just quickly go through in terms of the demo?
I do want to show the one last thing that we didn't really touch on.
Yep.
Tara, can we just jump back to that main page, to our main dashboard? We have, so one thing we've said about cloud is that it supports multiple legal applications. So what you're seeing here are two applications that we built for this demo. One is contract management, the other is GDPR compliance. Now, our GDPR compliance tool is a GDPR privacy policy review tool. It's not a replacement for a data processing response tool or anything. But we've made it so that anybody can create, build, and design a new legal application very quickly. So, Tara, if you can quickly click on Launch New Legal Application, we'll be brought to a page that will allow you to create a brand new one or use one of our pre-configured tools. So we have already configured a basic IP portfolio management application. It will ask you about what you need. So maybe you don't want to track copyright. So delete copyright, Tara. So we don't want copyright. We just want to track patents and trademarks. Great, we're done. You set it through. It asks you what the intake form could be so that it can analyze it with the AI. It will give you all of this. And as we walk through it, just keep going, Tara. And you'll see what questions are, what the transitions are, what the rules are for different approvers, what the metadata is that the AI in ContractPodAi will pull out. And then it will let you generate and launch and generate the application. And it will tell you what tools we have in the background. You know, one question we always get is, do we support e-signature? We do. We work with DocuSign. We work with Adobe Sign, eSign Live. We can support any e-signature tool. By default, we do include DocuSign as part of our platform. However, we have many others that can be that can integrate, and we have many customers that use other platforms for their signature tools.
Yeah.
With that, I think we may be done with a brief overview.
we're going to do the last poll, please. Can we have?
Oh yes, I forgot about the poll.
Can we have the last poll, and then I've just got one that's coming up. If everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. And if you're listening in on the record, thank you for listening. And if you've got any questions when we share this on legaltechnology.com, we'll add contact details so you can continue the conversation further. But so while you're doing the poll, just very lastly, how much of it with CLM, and I know this is obviously you've expanded it out, there's a lot of cultural side to it, isn't there, in terms of, you know, the change management side? Is that something that people need to sort of get their head around as well? Like, do you talk to people about, you know, that this is obviously this is a big tech play, but there's a big change management. There has to be the right appetite, doesn't there? And there has to be the right sort of level of management, I guess.
Yeah, I think I do think we are seeing a greater appetite for change in general. You know, a lot of departments, a lot of law firms went into the pandemic going, oh, I guess I can't access anything right now. But change management and digital transformation, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You have to have the ability to communicate what you're doing, communicate what the changes are you need, and drive that forward. So part of that is getting making sure that you've got all your participants involved, that you've got everyone who needs to be involved, aligned with you. So if you are going to start having your sales team generate documents, don't just make the mistake I made when I first implemented a different contract management platform and say, this is what we're going to do from now on. I couldn't get the sales team involved. When I implemented ContractPodAi, my prior company, I built a working group around it to make sure everything goes on. But part of change management, training, stakeholder engagement, all of those are very important. We will help you to do this. We will help you to do that. Now, we do have another question from Jeremy.
I think he says, has COVID lockdown made your value prop more compelling?
I think it has. I think it's even more compelling because one of the things I noticed with ContractPodAi at my prior company when we implemented it was my legal team, we didn't have a single day down. We went home on March 15th and we were working on March 16th.
Yeah.
There was no downtime because we were already ready to move entirely digital. Yeah. And it meant that my team, we could be locked in. We were locked in. Two of us were living here in Jersey City, New Jersey. Yeah. Two others were in Amsterdam, another in Slovakia, someone in Australia. None of us had any downtime, especially the Australians who apparently didn't even have COVID-19 from what we can tell. They've had the entire time being out having fun. Yeah. So it's really been a important thing, but I don't think just looking at a pandemic and saying this will never happen again is the end of this. I think what we have to do is companies and law firms and anyone we're working with really need to be beginning to do this digital transformation and continue moving forward.
So let's wrap up because we've run quite over although it's great to chat through. So let's just finish up with the poll. So that we asked, what's your biggest document automation challenge or pain at the present? It was either no central repository, which no one said, workflow approval, retrieval, and template control, 20%, too much volume and a lack of resources, 20%. But by far the biggest risk, the biggest pain, which probably comes not as a surprise, is governance risk and compliance management, which I think at the moment would speak to a lot of people listening in, I'm sure.
We are really focused now with our compliance and risk management tool on improving that and keeping an eye on ensuring that people can enforce their governance, whether it's by audit trails, by that risk tool that will only let certain people select things, but also the reporting. And by the way, we didn't touch on that much, Caroline, but we have incredibly deep customizable reporting. And one thing that I do want to point out before we finish is any of this can be as complex as you need or as easy as you need.
Yeah.
So if you have very complex workflows, we do think you should simplify them, but maybe there's a reason. We can make the system follow almost any level of complexity, from I just want to upload and be done to I have 57 steps and don't forget to go get me a milkshake while we're done, while we're operating. I cannot promise that the milkshake application works yet, but is milkshake very American? Because I don't see you.
No,
okay. I wasn't sure. I was sitting there wondering, we can, you know, whatever you need, blood sausage, blood pudding. We don't have a food tool yet, but I'm sure that's coming given how much I eat.
Jerry, in one sentence, so this is an interesting point in the questions. Is this an alternative to the DMS? So is this, and you know, I'm going to really ask you to hurry because we're now 10 minutes over, but I really think this is a very interesting point. So thank you for raising it. Is it the DMS alternative?
I would say that if you're ready to move there, we are ready to go with you.
I think that's a great note to end up on. Watch out, everyone. No, thank you. There's lots more opportunity to chat and to share information, and we'll be sharing this on our website with the recording. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for doing the demo, and we appreciate your time, and we appreciate everyone's time listening in. And let's carry on the conversation another time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.